Hi, my name is Amber Martin, and this is my assignment for my communications class. It's on gender and friendship, and it is titled Gossip Girls versus Bro Talk Bonding. So, for this assignment, I have to decipher major differences between gender and communication. So, I want to start off by first saying that cross sex and same sex friendships are important because they provide us with the opportunity to bond on two different levels, but they also allow us to see from a different perspective, which is really important. Verbal and nonverbal communication both offer us the ability to express our feelings, but more so, they offer us a means of connection in communal relationships. So, I wanted to pose a couple of questions. Are there major differences in communication and gender and communal relationships? And if so, what are these differences? Is gender the only basis for a difference in our dialect? And does gender negatively or positively influence communication in same-sex and cross-sex relationships? After keeping logs for approximately a week on 3 different subjects, I can say that I agree with the idea that gender plays a role in personal communication. However, I believe that there are other influences like biology and gender roles that also help to construct communication. My first subject is my sister, and she's a heterosexual female. All of our conversations consisted of words and phrases that were linked to gender and communication as far as female to female. Some examples that tie into female communication are the use of intensive adverbs and emotional references like I'm super annoyed or I just can't say anything without hurting her feelings. The dialect between my sister and myself is always back and forth, and the number of questions asked between us is usually pretty equal, all of which are feminine traits. There was a high volume of personal information, emotional expression, and emotional support in all of these situations, and there usually is whenever it comes to communication with my sister and myself. So these situations show me that female-to-female conversational exchanges coincide with the idea that women converse more about feelings and personal lives and are more elaborate than men. And they support the idea that gender differences are associated with specific subjects, such as emotional references. My second subject is a male heterosexual friend of the family, and he, over the week, kept his conversations very short and to the point. For every one question he asked me, I asked probably 4. Women tend to ask more questions, so those both put us in our gender roles. The fact that he was very direct and quick to get to his point is a very masculine trait, as are the traits of sarcasm and joking, all of which he used in all of his conversations, and most of them more so than my sister. These specific situations tell me that communication forms vary greatly between men and women and based on gender. My third subject, I wanted to do 3 because I wanted a non-gender variable, so I used my cousin, who is a male homosexual. Now, all of our conversations tended to fall under the expression of feelings or some sort of support or us consoling one another. We went very in depth about our conversations, and as a matter of fact, at the end of one conversation, he said, "Thank you so much for letting me vent. I really needed this." Well, in our text from Looking Out, Looking In, these are all very feminine traits, including the fact that he needed the communication. Women tend to need to talk, whereas men don't necessarily need it. It's just something that they can do without. My cousin's femininity is a huge contradiction to the idea that gender and communication links are so dependent on one another, because our male and female linguistic action is one of shared feelings and expressions, which are typically tied to same-sex female interactions. So this goes to show either a biological and or environmental difference and influencing factors rather than these differences being linked to gender. What I noticed as far as similarities in expression of cross-sex and same-sex friendships are that everybody tends to use their hands and their facial expressions about the same amount of time. Alicia and Johnny were equally as sarcastic as Josh. Johnny can express himself in a feminine or a masculine manner, and when I'm trying to command attention, I tend to use more of a masculine tone as well, so as to be taken seriously. So there are a lot of ways in which we coincide as well as in which we differ. I am happy with the way that I communicate in my relationships and my friendships, both same-sex and different sex. Guys tend to talk about business and joke about sports, and I'm more interested in how friendships are doing and in relationships and emotionally bonding with my friends. Cross-sex friendships are challenging and harder to understand, whereas same-sex friendships offer more support rather than conflict. Now, this is not a bad thing, but rather to the contrary. I think that this offers a type of yin and yang relationship. So while the two are different, they are completely necessary in order to communicate positively. I think that the differences in male and female communication offer more optimism, more learning, more insight, and I think I do it in a positive manner rather than in a negative manner, in my opinion. So in conclusion, I don't think that I would change the way in which I communicate with my relationships. I think that understanding our counter-sex is a means of building a stronger relationship. It teaches us to continually understand our opposite, whereas same-sex female-to-female friendships offer me a means of emotional release, support, and bonding. And while there are marked differences in gender and communication on a gender-based level, if we look at our species as a whole, the generality of our communication comes from a number of sources, including biology, environmental influences, social influences, and, of course, gender.